right that you're out in San Diego?
I am in San Diego.
That's crazy. I lived in San Diego for like 6 years. I moved out of there maybe 2 years ago now.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I just moved here it's been almost a year now.
How do you like it?
It's better than where I'm from. I'm from North Carolina, so it's like 100 times better.
So you were born in North Carolina?
I am.
What part?
So I was born in a small town called Wake Forest, but it's like 30 minutes from the capital. So I just basically say I'm from Raleigh. The way like some people are like, oh, I'm from whatever town. It's because it's closest, because nobody's going to know what Wake Forest is.
That's not the same Wake Forest as like the college, is it?
That's kind of like a common misconception. Like, everyone thinks that the college is like in Wake Forest, the town, but it's like an hour away. It's completely different.
I got you. So was it like for real small town life? Or are we talking like a pretty tiny place?
Yeah, it's pretty small town, suburban area. Like my high school had like, I don't know, less than 2,000 people.
You know, it's funny when I come to do these interviews, like I try to do research beforehand and find out a little bit about the people. It's funny because it was hard to do research on you because there's not a ton out there. And
no, there's not.
Well, that makes it more fun for me because then I get to learn something. But I was going to ask you, has that been intentional for you? Or is it just that there's not that much out there yet?
Yeah, I think I'm still like pretty early days in my career, if I could say. So I don't think I've had a chance to put a lot out there yet.
How has that part been for you, you know, in the early days of your career with the public engagement part of it, like starting to put yourself out there, not just your music, but you as a person, interacting with more people, having that public perception? Like as a kid, were you the performer? Were you out there? Is that something you kind of had to learn over time?
I think growing up, my mom and dad told me I was super outgoing, like on stage. I think I was like 3 or 4. I started like doing ballet, and she told me like I would just go running on stage and I would start doing my own dance, like not even what the routine was, not even the choreography. I would start doing my own dance and just throw everybody off. But I was like 3, but she said I was always super comfortable on stage. And then, I don't know, things kind of changed after like I grew up. I became a little bit more shy, a little bit more secluded, and kind of being on stage like was not my thing. But I don't know, I think I'm like 2 years into my DJing producer career. So I've been definitely a little bit more comfortable on stage, and it's like, feels like second nature to me now.
That's good. Yeah. Maybe you can kind of tap into whatever that young kid energy used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. 3 or 4 years old seems like early to start doing ballet.
Yeah, I mean, I did it for like maybe less than a year, and then I wanted to quit.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Well, what did your folks do? Like, why were you in North Carolina in the first place? So,
my parents are originally from South Korea. They moved here when they were, I think they were about my age, actually. They met in America, which is really awesome. They immigrated from South Korea, and they started off doing like a restaurant business almost. So they started off managing a Denny's out in Henderson, North Carolina, which is like a super, like even more of a small town than where I'm from. And they were doing that for about 10 years. And then we moved to Wake Forest, and they started a restaurant of their own. So it's a sushi restaurant. They've been doing that for about 10 years now.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Was that the reason they came over initially? Do you know? Was it kind of that stereotypical like American dream?
I think so. Yeah. I think both of them were pursuing that stereotypical American dream. And I don't know, they met each other and they started a business together and fell in love and had me.
I mean, that's adorable. It's really cool that they found each other, you know, once they had both moved to the States. And it's wild
and North Carolina, out of all places, you know, it's just so random. I kind of wish my parents decided to, you know, instead of like out of anywhere in the country, they decided, oh, okay, North Carolina is the one. That's the place I want to be. Instead of like California, like New York, somewhere where it's, I don't know, better, I think.
Right. But it's like, it's funny to think about because sometimes I think you just don't know. Like I was talking to somebody, God, I can't believe I'm not remembering who, but it was someone who moved here from another country and he was so excited to move here. And then he ended up moving to Iowa. And to him, Iowa was like, it was like the same as anywhere else. It was just like America, big and bright and crazy. And he told me, yeah, he landed in Iowa. It's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, yeah. I don't think, sometimes you don't know.
Like in the Midwest, in the middle of nowhere, is a bunch of cornfields.
Yeah. I mean, when you were growing up, did the smallness of it, the culture of it, was that annoying? Did it feel like you wanted to get out there? Did it feel constraining?
Absolutely. Oh my God. Growing up, it was just, I was so tired of everybody. And okay, I say this because it's not a very diverse type of area. It's like, I want to say it's like 90% white people.
Yeah.
And like growing up, I was like maybe one of 3 Asian kids in my entire school. And I wanted somewhere I could go that I could see people of my own and just meet other people that aren't the same, like, you know, like soccer moms and I don't know.
Yep.
There's like, I wanted to escape all that.
Well, of course. And I have to assume you were probably getting some weird comments, even if people didn't mean to, but just like, there's in an environment like that, I think it would probably be really easy to feel, you know, othered or like outside, just and at a time, especially as like a young kid, when everybody feels that way already, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's got to be. So how long did you stay there before you moved out of North Carolina?
I lived there until I want to say I moved when I was 19. So I'm 21 now, but I moved to Atlanta when I was 19 and I decided to move to Atlanta in like a week.
Okay.
It was very spontaneous because I have some friends down in Atlanta and I lived there for about a year, but I straight up told my parents like within a week, I was like, okay, I'm moving out and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And they're like, wait, hold on. We got to discuss this. We got to talk about this. I was like, no, I've already made my mind. Yeah. I'm leaving. Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, let's take it back a little bit. So, you know, talking about teen years, like what were you doing as a kid? Was music part of the equation at that point? Did you have hobbies, passions? Like what were you doing on a daily basis as a teenager?
I was kind of a little bit nerdy. So I started playing piano when I was 4. And that was the one thing I didn't quit because I've tried maybe 10 different hobbies and I quit all of them because I get so bored easily. But I started playing piano when I was 4 and I stuck with it and played for about 10 years. And then after that, it was in middle school when I joined band for the first time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to play the clarinet. And nice. I got tired of the clarinet. And then the next year I was like, okay, I'm going to play the saxophone. So I played the tenor saxophone for a year. And then I got tired of that. And I started to teach myself guitar. And we bought a drum set. And I was just teaching myself a bunch of instruments. And then I want to say what led me to production in general was we had a project in, I want to say it was 7th grade, but we all had an iPad and I was first introduced to GarageBand. And one of our projects was to create a song using GarageBand. And I've never used GarageBand before or anything of that sort. And after that, I was just instantly, I was in love. I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. I mean, that's so cool that in school you were given that kind of opportunity. I feel like so many times you talk to somebody and, you know, they had to figure it out on their own, you know, nothing in school at all. That's cool that you were able to have that kind of experience. Do you think like when you were playing piano or playing any of the other instruments, was it on your mind that, you know, you wanted to be creating it yourself? Like, were you writing songs? No, I wasn't actually. So GarageBand, like that project was the first time I ever composed something myself. And I've never done that before. So I think that was super special to me. And it's what drove me to do this. What did it sound like? Do you remember? Oh my God. I don't even remember it. But I'm sure it was pure shit. I'm sure that it was terrible, like everyone's first song. Well, of course. I mean, had you been listening to electronic music? Like what were you into outside of, you know, band stuff and school stuff? I It's kind of weird, but I didn't get into electronic music until like, I guess I want to say I'm a late bloomer.
Yeah.
As people tell me, but I didn't get into that until like 2014, 2015. So I missed out on the entire big room era, the festival trap era. Yeah. And I got into electronic music when it was like the melodic dubstep era. So Adventure Club was a big thing, that Crave You song. And
oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Skrillex. That's kind of what hooked me to this genre.
How did you hear it in the first place? Do you remember?
Ooh, I was like, I think I found it on YouTube, right? And I love telling this story. I found it on YouTube and growing up, my parents didn't let me have like a phone or like an iPod. You know how like iPod Nanos and stuff were so popular back then? I didn't have any of those. So what I had was a Kindle, an e-reader, right? Yeah. And I found a way to download music on there. Like I would like, I don't know, I think I would like get it off of LimeWire and I would just like download music onto my Kindle and I would plug my headphones in and I would take that to school with me and I would just like listen to my e-reader and I'd be listening to Skrillex like on the way to school.
On your Kindle. That's amazing. Yeah. Did you ever tell your parents that?
I don't think they cared, but I remember like I was riding around on my bike, like around the neighborhood with my e-reader in my backpack and listening to Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites. And I just felt like a complete badass. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he comes up on this show so much and really that EP because there's just nothing else. Like it sounded like nothing else, you know, it was right. It's like, it's so rare in anybody's life. I think that you hear something that you've never heard before that doesn't sound like anything, you know,
like a true pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And was it hearing those first couple things plus that garage band experience that gave you the thought that maybe this is something you wanted to get into?
I tried to get into it. Once again, like I have this habit of starting something and then quitting it because I get bored super easily. I have ADHD like really badly, but so I kind of tried to make beats on my own. Then I got bored of it. And then I finished high school, right? It wasn't until I went to Bonnaroo 2018. And that was my first festival, first electronic event ever. And I saw Tokimonsta play on stage, right? And I've never seen someone who resembles me, like looks like me on stage before. And so seeing her play really sparked my entire interest back up again. And I just wanted to pick up my laptop and start making music right there. Oh,
that's amazing. I love her. Yeah, she's incredible. And that's such a cool story as well. What did you like prior to that? What did you think you were going to be doing? Or maybe did your parents have expectations for what you were going to do?
I mean, yeah, so it's very stereotypical, but you know, I've got the Korean parents. They want me to be like a doctor or a lawyer or pursue something that will bring in money, as they say. So I don't think any creative career was something that they would approve of. But it's just so funny because they were the ones that put me onto piano in the first place. And then as soon as I tell them, hey, I want to do this for a living, they're like, no, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's especially tough. And this is me speaking, just having talked to other people. This wasn't my experience, but you know, being the offspring of first generation immigrants, like it was blowing my mind earlier when you said, you know, they were your age when they came over to this country, and to think about being that young and everything you have to go through to sort of establish a new life like that. I think, to me, it's super understandable, right? That you would see your kid go down a route that's like, oh, I don't know, there's no security down there. Yeah, exactly. They're like, we came here and we sacrificed everything for you, and this is what you want to do, blah, 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 blah. Do you have any siblings? I have a younger brother. He's 16. Did he like take any of that? What's he doing? Oh my God. I think I like kind of set the bar low for my parents and for my brother. Like I was
definitely the problem child. So he's like an angel in their eyes. He's super smart. He's like real good at science and math. I feel like he's going to be the dream child my parents always wanted.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, maybe that at least gives you an out to be like, all right, so it's okay for me to do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
When did you realize that this was something you really wanted to commit to? Because I think it's easy to have it be a passion, but then taking the next step to be like, this could actually be a career, that's a whole different thing.
So after I went to Bonnaroo, it created this kind of addiction for me. So I was working at my parents' restaurant and I was serving, and I was living basically paycheck to paycheck. I would spend every single paycheck on a festival ticket. So I was going to one festival every single month. I would like fly over the country by myself just because I was in love with it. And
by yourself, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was like 18 years old and I was flying to Chicago to go to North Fest, like by myself. And I don't know, it just felt super safe for me just because I love how the culture is and everyone's super accepting. So I didn't really feel scared or nervous going by myself because I know everyone's going to accept me anyways.
Yeah. When you were there, just out of curiosity, like you would show up by yourself. Yeah. Would you just spend the whole weekend by yourself, just watching music? Would you end up making friends, talking to people? Like, what was the experience of going to a new place all by yourself to a crazy festival?
I don't know. I'm looking back in hindsight, it was probably stupid of me, but I didn't go to these festivals with much planning done, right? I would go like without even booking a place to stay. And I like in the hopes of like, hey, maybe someone will like take me in for the night. It was kind of bad looking back.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of how it was for me when I was 18.
Did it work out though? I mean, you
did, like surprisingly. Yeah. I mean, like I found so many, we're still friends to this day, but so many people like were so kind to me and like let me stay at their house and hang out with them throughout the nights. I went to EDC Orlando, I want to say was also 2018. I don't remember. But once again, I found this like little family in Orlando and they took me in, kind of like, I don't know, being super nice of them. And they would host these after parties at their house. And, there was always somebody DJing. And I would kind of like look over the controller and I was like, that looks fun. And I would like walk over there and just examine everything that they're doing. And one of the guys was like, hey, do you want to try it? And I was like, I've never touched a controller before in my life. And he was like, no, I'll teach you. I got you. So he taught me the basics of how to like, bring up the track, fade things out. And, the next day he was like, I'm actually selling this controller. Do you want it? I'll sell it for like $75. And it was it was a Pioneer DDJ SB2. So it was like one of those tiny controllers. And it was like, I'll sell it to you. And I was like, why not? Okay, I'll buy it. So I bought it and I had to chuck that in my suitcase, fit it somehow and bring it home with me. And after that, I started to teach myself how to DJ with YouTube videos. Then one of my friends introduced me to this weekly EDM night at this bar downtown. It's like a tiny bar. I want to say it's like the size of my room. It's tiny, right?
Yeah.
And they would be like 50 people there every Friday night, and it would just be like all the local DJs having fun and just throwing EDM nights. And I wanted to try it out, and I was begging like one of the promoters. I was like, please let me play. And he was like, no, you got to come back when you're ready, when you know how to play CDJs. And I was like, why can't I just bring my controller to the bar? Why can't I do that? He's like, no, you got to learn how to play CDJs. So eventually I had to learn how to play CDJs. And then I played my first show to a crowd of 20 people. And then that was it. I just wanted to do that for the rest of my life.
Oh, man. I mean, that's like hearing you talk about those early shows in that club with 50 people. I mean, to me, I have memories like that from when I started out. And they're some of my favorite memories. Like some of those nights with those 50 people, that's like more fun than I've ever had.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's super intimate. Like everyone's homies.
Yeah. There's something about it when it's this local scene, everyone everyone from like daily life, but then you're kind of seeing everyone in this other context. And I don't know, there's something about it. It's super intimate, I think is a good word for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Is there anything you miss from when you were starting out, whether it's, a vibe like that, or whether it's that community feeling or something that was happening in the scene? Like, is there anything from those early days that you really hold on to?
I think it's that genuine support and just people rooting for you, people really wanting you to grow and wanting to see you succeed. I love that. And also the relationship you have with the community, how close you are to each other, because now I'm in like a bigger, more saturated area with a lot more people, and it's harder to become friends with people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, San Diego, I mean, when I was there were a few people there. I think there's a few more now. Like, have you linked up with any of I know ISOXO's out there and
yeah, so we hung out I think once or twice. Yeah, we got like in and out together. It was fun.
Oh, nice.
It was ISO and Noctu and a couple other homies.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I think my good friend of mine, Tsu, he's out in North County somewhere.
Nice.
So there's like a little scene. Let's talk about Atlanta first, though. So like once you got to Atlanta, was that full on? Like, did the move to Atlanta coincide with you saying, I'm going to take a run at this music thing?
Yeah. So Atlanta was I want to say it's the place where I actually started getting real bookings to open up for people. Because when I was in North Carolina, it was more just for fun, playing for friends. But Atlanta was when I actually started making money from it.
Right.
And it was all thanks to my roommate. His name's Abe, and he throws shows. He has a whole production company called Celestial, and he throws the greatest shows. But he really put me on to a lot of lineups and a lot of gigs. And yeah, I got to thank him for that, just because if it weren't for him, I don't think I'd be where I am today.
Do you have any memories of those early, like once you went legit, quote unquote, and started getting these opening slots? Because that's a whole scene in itself, right? It's like the local opener playing these shows. What do you remember from those days?
There's good memories and there's bad memories, right? I mean, so it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed doing my thing on stage. But I remember like after my set, I would just want to go chill in the green room. I just want to leave and I want to take a breather. And then I would try to go in the green room and the security would be like, whoa, you can't be in here. And I was like, I just played. And he would like laugh at me. It's like, yeah, okay. And I'd be like, nah, I deadass just played. And, we'd argue about it. And then some manager would come to like, you need to let her in. And it was like, oh, okay, sorry, my bad. It was a lot of those. Or like, oh, like, is your boyfriend the DJ? No, it's me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's two things, right? It's just the local opener never gets any respect anyway.
Right.
And then combine that with the sexism that's crazy in the EDM scene. That's got to be very annoying. I mean, maybe this is another question then, is from that memory to where you are now, has it gotten any better?
I think so. And I'm really happy to say that. I think so. I think it's slowly progressing. It's a slow change, but it is a change. It's happening.
Yeah.
And there's not much I can say for in real life type of experiences, but definitely online, I feel like it has gotten better.
People are talking about it more. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I really hope that does translate into actual change. Like to use a recent example, like if we look at the pandemic, I think this year there's been lots of talk online about, the music industry can reset this year and things can be different and people can experiment with new sounds and festival lineups can look differently. I don't know, I'm a little jaded, so I'm kind of cynical as to like whether that's actually going to happen. But we'll see what happens.
Gotta have hope. Gotta stay hopeful.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and what gives me hope is the new generation of artists and of fans that are coming into it. I think it's the old guard and the money in it that is resistant to the change, Yeah.
I think a lot of these promoters are also, honestly, I don't know if this is offensive, but I think they're a little bit out of touch with today's music, because I'm sure they're looking at, what is it, like top 100 DJs. They're like, oh yeah, this is the headliner. This is what's going to bring us fans. But they don't realize like it's a completely different scene. I mean, there's tons of other acts that would bring in people.
Yeah, I think what the
especially
problem
women.
is. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the problems, there's a lot of problems, but one of them, I think, is that especially at the high levels, like the mega Coachellas and Lollapaloozas of the world, like they only look at numbers. That's literally all they look at.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like, and it could be that some of the models they're looking at are outdated. Like if they're only looking at, you know, followers on X platform or streams on Y platform, there could be all this new viral bubbling, some new thing they're not looking at. That to me, I think that's a huge problem. Is that it's so based on money that artistry there's no room for new ideas because they only will trust what they know works.
They're like, yeah, bring it on, Tiesto again.
Yeah, right, exactly. Just bring him back.
Yeah.
And I mean, shout out to Tiesto. Like, I got nothing against Tiesto, but it's
neither do I. But
no, Tiesto's great, but it's like, and it's funny because even a guy like him, he would be excited about new artists. You know, like it's weird at a certain point. I think it's the system more so than it is the artists themselves. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of just talking out of my ass. For you though, like if we take it back to Atlanta for a second, were you also making music at that time?
I was very beginner. Yeah, I think I was my first year of production, and I'm sure you know the feeling as well. You know how when you start producing and you make your first couple songs and you think like, oh my God, this is the best shit ever. Like I'm going to blow up and I'm so proud of these tracks. Like it's next level. And then you listen to them a year after, like, God, what the fuck was I thinking? Like that shit was terrible. I didn't sidechain anything. Like I just thought this was some hot shit, but it was not.
Well, I mean, when did other people start thinking it was hot shit? Like, do you remember the first time you made something that other people were really excited about?
I think it was about a year after I started making music, and I started to put out a bunch of flips and bootlegs that really caught up a lot of attention because my originals weren't really grasping the listeners as much as a remix or a bootleg would do. And I was putting a lot of those out on SoundCloud, and I think that really caught a couple listeners.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said earlier, like you missed a lot of these things we talk about a lot, like the big room house era and all that, and that you came to it a little later. Because when I listen to your music, there's like, I'm curious what your references are and like what your influences actually are, because you make a lot of different kinds of sounds. There's like, tasteful house and like disco filter, like funk influences.
Yeah.
And then bass and club influences. Like what were you listening to in those early years of production that was really informing your sound?
So yeah, I kind of was a late bloomer with electronic music, but I did my job. I went back and I looked through all the music of each era and really took time to appreciate them. And I found out I really like that old French house. Like I love that stuff. I love filter house, and I love like drum and bass and footwork and a lot of those like older genres that people aren't really in touch with now. Yep. And I kind of found appreciation for those. So I kind of pull a lot of influence from each genre and kind of compile them into one track. But I want to say my biggest influence for reference is probably like Muramasa. Just because of how versatile he is as an artist, and everything he makes is just, it's magic.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a great way to put it, like, because that's what he does, right? Is you listen to his music and you hear all these little pieces of a lot of different ideas and styles, but then somehow what comes out of it feels really fresh. Like it doesn't feel like he's just referencing something, Like who would you look at who are your friends, your contemporaries in the scene? Like when you were putting those bootlegs on SoundCloud, was there a little scene of people you were talking to and sending music back and forth with?
So I found this little community on Twitter. It's called A Collective. And one day my homie Misfit tweeted, I was like, yo, I'm putting together a group chat for a bunch of producers. Anybody that wants to join, doesn't matter what skill level, how many followers you have. If you want to join, hit me up. So I did. I was like, let me in there. Yeah, this happened like a year or two ago, and we're all super close now. I mean, we're the best of homies, and they really supported my music. You know, every time I would put out a song, they would repost it, they would share it, and they would retweet any promos about it. They were super supportive, and I think it was due to them. Like,
yeah, no, that's really interesting. Do you like where you're at now? I mean, you just put out a Party with Bitbird.
Yeah.
Is that kind of an extended family to you? Like, where do you see yourself fitting in, if you see yourself fitting into anywhere right now?
I think Bitbird's it's a good one. I think just because, you know, they gear more towards the melodic side of things, as do I, and it's super unique stuff. It's all really fresh tunes and nothing generic of the sort.
Yeah, I think that's one thing they do really well is they're hard to categorize, which I guess I should ask you. I mean, do you like being that hard to categorize?
I love
artist?
it. Yeah, I love it. It's what drives me. I want people to be confused about what genre I am.
Nice. That's good. I like that. And to connect with Bitbird, well, how did you connect with them in the first place?
I was going to release a song, and I did, called Promise. And I made a little promo video, and it was nothing special. I mean, I just set my phone up and just filmed me dancing to my own song. And that was it. That was my promo video. I put it on Twitter, and a bunch of my friends were retweeting it. And somehow I think it ended up on San Holo's timeline, and he saw it. And he retweeted it, and he even quoted, he was like, "This is a dope song," or whatever. And then he messaged me. He was like, "If you have any more tunes to send over, feel free." And I kind of had like that starstruck moment, like, oh my God, San Holo's talking to me. But yeah, I gave him some more tunes to listen to, and he really gave me some helpful feedback. And I think that's how Party was born. That's
awesome. I mean, yeah, a lot of your music is, when I listen to it, it's unique, but it's also like super mature sounding in terms of the production quality itself for like how short of a time you've been doing it.
Thank you.
Party, oh yeah, absolutely. And Party struck me as that. Like, do you have a vision for where you want to take your sound? Are you trying to get somewhere?
Part of me wants to tribute the older Future bass. So like Lido and Wave Racer and Snake Hips, kind of like that 2015, 2016 Majestic Casual Future Classic era. And I've always been in love with that style, and I kind of want to bring it back.
I like that. Yeah.
So that's what kind of drove Party.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. I mean, I think there's so much to be gained from going even just a couple years back, like you said. Like I also love that you did your homework and you learned about Filter House and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's interesting because a lot of times I talk to people about, you know, how can we keep it fresh and keep innovating without like losing people or alienating people? Because it's like, it's hard to think about, right? Of like, it's scary to put a new idea in front of people if they don't have any way to connect to it. But what you just said, I think, is so perfect because it's really not that hard. All you got to do is like go back a couple of years, take an idea that was cool that isn't being used right now, and just see what you can do with it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like a little flip sometimes, a little bit of your perspective, I think is so valuable. 100%. What are you producing on now?
I'm on Ableton now. So I started off using Logic, obviously, because I was on GarageBand and I was very used to that interface. And then all of my friends bullied me out of using Logic because everyone's in Ableton snob. They're like, you need to switch over to Ableton. Yeah. You'll never be able to collab, blah, 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 blah. It's just so much better. The workflow is 100% better. And I don't know, after a year, I was like, fine, I'll try it out. And so I switched over to Ableton, and I'm not gonna lie, for the first couple of months, it was really challenging just because there's such a huge learning curve going from Logic to Ableton. It's a completely different
the workflow
type of workflow.
Totally
absolutely. Different. But I was like, all right, I just gotta get the hang of this and just push myself through it. And I did it. And I'm kind of glad they bullied me out of it because I'm never going back.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm in Ableton too, and for me, it's just faster. It's just easier. Like
Yeah,
at the
I agree.
end of the day. Are you pretty much just in the box, like soft synths, Ableton? That's what you got, or do you have like external hardware?
So I've been using Serum and Omnisphere. I really love Omnisphere. I think all the presets are dope, but you get a lot of those instruments that you can't really emulate with a synthesizer. And another thing is I'm actually very sample heavy. I'm very sample heavy in my production, just because when I first started producing, I was producing on a MacBook Air, and those things are, I mean, they're terrible for production. You open one Serum and it's going to crash.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to be really clever with sample usage.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, sometimes when you get those restrictions put on you, it can kind of spark creativity in a different way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that probably ends up influencing your sound a little bit too, now that I'm thinking about it, because I think a lot of your songs, they don't sound like they're sample based, but they do have that kind of, there's like a nostalgic feeling to them that I think you can get with sampling a lot.
I love sampling. Even with Party, the story behind that was, I'm sure you felt this too. You know how when you go to an after party or a party or something and there's a bunch of people there that you don't know and you have like one friend there. Yeah. And your one friend goes and talks to another group. So you kind of just like standing there. And I wanted to channel that energy into Party. So what I did was I found recordings of a live crowd like at a party, and I chopped that up and I put that throughout the song. And it's just little things like that, which is what makes sampling so beautiful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better. And I think that's also what makes the song stand out. It's what makes it feel so unique, is that you took that extra step to put those little touches that, maybe your average listener isn't even necessarily going to pick up on, but the effect of it really does, put you in a place mentally that I think just hearing that song without that crowd noise, it wouldn't be the same at all,
Just needed to set the scene. The imagery.
I love that. I mean, are you thinking about imagery a lot when you're writing music?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm thinking about a certain memory or a certain image. And I think that really helps.
How does it start for you? Does a song literally come out of like a memory or a feeling? Do you usually start, if you were on piano for a while, does it start as chords? Do you have like a regular process for songwriting?
So it definitely starts with chords for me. And it just like, I can't just start producing out of nowhere. I have to be inspired by something. So it's usually happening after I listen to a song and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I need to make music right now. Or if I'm like listening to a mix in the car and I'm like, okay, I need to go home and do that. Then I start off with some chords and it just goes from there.
Yeah, I always love finding out, what sparks it for different people, because there's so many different approaches to it. Also because you work in so many different styles, right? And your songs could sound like super different from one another genre-wise. Is that part of the thinking when you sit down? Is it like, I want to write a house song today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It just depends on the mood.
Well, what mood have you been in lately? What kind of stuff have you been writing?
I've been listening to that, once again, that classic future bass a lot. So I'm in that phase right now again. Yeah. So I'm listening to a lot of Wave Racer, Lido, Muramasa, Snake Hibbs, the future classic, Majestic Casual.
Yeah. And it's funny because that future classic name, I was about to say, those are classics now.
Yeah,
they were right on the money. How's the pandemic year been for you? Because it's got to be weird. I feel like, you said at the start, like you're just getting into maybe this first wave of your career. Is it weird to have that roadblock all of a sudden of like everything shutting down?
Yeah, it was definitely kind of upsetting at first, just because I felt like I was finally gaining some traction. Like, okay, I'm finally getting somewhere, and all of a sudden, boom, COVID. And, sorry. Yeah, but in a way, I'm kind of thankful for it, just because being able to stay at home really let me level up in my production and get better with that. Because I mean, that's what makes a true artist, you know, like how good is your ability to create music, obviously. And yeah, I really got to thank the pandemic for that, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah. Shout out COVID.
Yeah.
But no, that's not crazy at all. I mean, that's, I think, a great use of your time. There's probably not a better use of your time in that year.
Yeah, I'm not focused on playing shows and making set lists. Like, I have all the time in the world to focus on just creating the music right now.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, that makes me think, like, what's the fun part of it for you? Because you've had the experience in Atlanta of playing a bunch of shows, seeing what it's like on the bigger production side. Like, is that something you're like really raring to get into? Is the music writing the fun part? Like, what's the most exciting part of this career for you right now?
I love playing shows. I love being in front of a crowd, and I love feeling that energy. But I think it's all special to me, just because when I was playing in Atlanta, I wasn't really playing a lot of my own music just because I wasn't that great at producing it. But when shows finally come back, I feel like it's just going to be a whole different experience because I'm going to play my own music.
Right. Was the move to San Diego, was music a part of that at all?
Yeah, I think so. So my boyfriend, his name is Radcat. His artist name is Radcat. He lives in San Diego, and we were doing long distance for a while. And
that's cross country long distance. Yeah,
I know, right? The whole 3-hour difference. It's crazy. I don't know. I think I just decided. I was like, "Hey, can I move in with you?" And he was like, "I don't know, why not?" And I did it.
Nice. That's another like impulsive decision.
Yeah, it definitely was.
But it seems like it worked out. I mean, if you guys can have a lockdown year together and still like each other, I think that's a pretty good sign.
Absolutely.
Did you meet him on like your festival travels? How did you meet a guy who lives in San Diego?
He actually doesn't. He was never a raver. He was never, a candy kid or people that goes to festivals. I think it's so funny. His first time at a festival was when he played one.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But so no, it wasn't through a show or a festival or anything. But I was listening to his music in high school. So he was one of those artists that I was really bumping a lot, like Wave Racer and Flume and kind of that style genre. And he was making the music that I really adore. And I remember like being 15 or 16 listening to his music. And then a couple years later down the road, he like followed me back on Twitter, and then
just started that way.
Yeah.
Internet romance. I love it.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Dating someone who does the same thing that you do, I could see how that could cause friction, but I could also see how that could be really awesome at the start, where someone can relate to all these things you're going through and experiencing for the first time. It's got to be kind of nice.
We definitely understand each other with the lifestyle, as far as the lifestyle goes. And I think we're definitely feeding off of each other's creative energy all the time, just bouncing off of each other. And I will say it's a little bit annoying sometimes, just because especially when we're trying to collab, I'm very picky, and I'm very I'm kind of like a control freak. I want to do everything myself, and that part of me comes out whenever we're trying to make music together. But aside from that, it's been fun. It's been good.
No, that's good. I mean, it's interesting. So, you were talking about how you maybe have ADHD earlier, and you would kind of go from one thing to the next. How did you manage to focus it for music, where now you're the control freak who's like in all the little details? Like, what is it about music, do you think, that allows you to focus in on it like that?
It's like a pretty typical thing for people with ADHD. They have like a couple things, like very specific things that they hyper focus on and that they're super passionate about. They can do all day. And for me, at least, that's music. Well,
that makes sense. I mean, then that's, I guess, a lucky thing to have it be that, and
exactly.
Not something more annoying.
Right.
In all of this, like, where do you see this going? Like, do you have any goals you're looking at? Like, what's the version of success for you for this project?
I think my version of success would be when I put out an album, or just like a true piece of work, something like a compilation. Yeah, I would
Is
love
that
to release an album
something
one day.
you could do it? I mean, yeah, is that maybe the next like big project you're thinking about tackling?
Right now, I'm trying to focus on an EP. So yes, essentially in a smaller scale. But yeah,
Right.
I think like you pointed out best, I'm very like all over the place with genre. So creating an EP or an album or a compilation in general is kind of challenging for me, just because I have to compile enough songs that are cohesive with each other, and that's hard to do when I'm bouncing around different genres all the time.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, and it's a funny thing because I think people kind of split two ways about, should you really define this signature sound that everyone can recognize as kind of, like a branding thing to help just sort of like grease the wheels, I guess.
Right.
Or should you stay diverse so that you can never be pigeonholed and can kind of go and do what you want? And to me, I think the second way and what you're doing is the better way. I think that's the long-term success way.
It's more fun.
Well, yeah, that too, right? Like you have to keep it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's a really good point too, is, have you found anything to keep yourself happy or sane or, just mentally together? Because I think the start of a career, it's exciting, it's stressful, there's a bunch going on, there's a bunch of uncertainty. Like, have you figured out a way to kind of even all that out for yourself mentally?
I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit challenging, like mentally, especially because I deal with a little bit of anxiety as well. But I think my self-therapy, my self-care, I guess, is playing video games. So I love to play on my Switch, and I do that a lot.
What are your
and
games?
Sometimes, so I just finished playing Persona 5.
That's the one everyone tells me I gotta play.
Oh, it's so good. It's so fun. And I finished playing the new Mario bundle that came out, the Mario 3D Land and Bowser's Fury.
Was that good?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I'm a huge Mario fan. I'm a huge Nintendo fan. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I have some friends who are telling me I need to check that out, but I haven't.
You should. Yeah,
I haven't done the Mario games in a few years. Like, I don't know why, but I kind of just dropped off with them.
I love platform games. So like Mario, where you have to move around and and then defeat a boss. I think that's like my favorite.
Have you gotten into streaming at all?
I wish I did, but I'm not the most tech savvy person. Right. So it's so hard for me to like try to stream something.
It's and even with
annoying, this Zoom meeting, I was like having my boyfriend. I was like, how do I set up the webcam? And he was like, you literally just plug it in.
No, but it's funny because so many DJs had to learn that this year. Like, what is OBS? What is Twitch? What is streaming? And it's not. For me, it's not. None of that shit is fun. Like. Maybe I'm similar to you. Maybe we have the same kind of brain where like, I think some people, a technical challenge is like exciting and fun.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not fun at all for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. This has been super fun talking to you. Is there anything we haven't covered? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything else you want to let people know about?
Let's talk about women. Let's talk about what women mean in the scene. I think that's super important to cover.
Absolutely.
So I watched this documentary last night. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you check it out. It's called Underplayed.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And it made me so angry, but in a good way, in a good way.
Well, and that documentary, for people who don't know, is more or less following several different female electronic musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just tells a story about what it's like to be a woman in
their
the dance music scene.
Yeah.
Once again, we were talking about promoters and kind of how out of touch they are. And I think, we can't make the change all by ourselves, right? Everybody has to play their part. And I think it starts at the top. So we're talking about promoters and playlisters and just people who are at the top. I think they need to do a better job on being more inclusive to those marginalized communities. 100%. And I think that's where change can really branch out from.
Yeah, well, that's the money and the people in power. Those are the ones who set the tone at the end of the day, right? Because we were talking earlier about how online, on Twitter, people are talking about these issues more. I think there's an understanding that it needs to change. But the dance music industry, and maybe this isn't unique to dance music, this is probably true for a lot of different industries, but unless those few people at the tippy top make the change themselves, we're not going to see it. It's going to take a lot longer until those people make a change.
Exactly.
And it's tough because, it's a money game. Like to me, it all comes back to money. The people at the top, often that's their main concern. It's not how is the community doing. It's not how is the scene doing. It's
absolutely
how's my bottom line. And that's a hard position to argue somebody out of,
Exactly.
I wish I knew a better way to convince those people of why this matters. Because I think the thing is, like, I had Aluna from Aluna George on this show.
Oh, I love her.
She's incredible. And one thing she was talking about, which I've been thinking about a lot since she said it, is that it's almost crazy in a way for them to not open it up and to try to be more inclusive, because there's a whole community of underserved people who would be ready to like give these promoters their money or to get involved, but you have to give something to get something, right? It's
absolutely.
I don't even know if it's taking a risk, but it's just opening it up, trying something new. Trying
it's a bit
something
scary for them.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I get it. Like, there's a lot of money on the line, but at the same time, I don't know how we expect it to change. I don't even know why it's fun to book the same people over and over,
Yeah, I think the best way we can help is to keep applying pressure, right? Keep applying a pressure to these tippity top people and really just be on top of them and keep applying pressure to them, so they feel like they're obligated to do something. Maybe they're not, but if enough of us keep applying pressure to them, maybe they'll be incited to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean, yeah, raising the level of the discourse, turning up the volume on all of that. I think the more the better. I don't think you can do that too much. Are there any, that makes me think too, are there any like up and coming female acts or even established female artists who are really inspiring you? Anyone off the top of your head you feel like should get a shout out?
I gotta say, okay, so we have this dope community called Girl Gang. And I don't know if you know who Jeannie is, but she started it. And we've got a Discord, we've got social medias together, and it's just a community and it's a safe space for anyone who's feeling marginalized outside of the standard norm for this industry. It's a place where we can come together and speak and just chill, share music. And I think those safe spaces are super important to people like us.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that's awesome to hear. I'll make sure we link to those pages once this drops.
Yeah.
And people can go check all of that out. I guess earlier you talked about, those really early days playing in a bar for 20 people and that feeling kind of safe. Like when you were coming up, did you have a safe space, like a community of people anywhere that you felt like you could always go to if you needed?
Never in person, but it was more online. It was just my support group, like my friends and, the Girl Gang Discord. I think they were my only like source of support apart from my friends in real life. But other than that, there wasn't really a safe space, I feel.
Yeah. No, and that's sad to hear, but it doesn't surprise me because I think that's another part of it, right? Maybe to bring it back to what we were just talking about is I think another thing people on the ground level can do is try to create those communities and those safe spaces for people, right?
Definitely. Once we have more representation of those marginalized communities and once we have more spotlights on them, I feel like that's going to bring forth another wave of change as well. Just because the only reason I started was because I saw Tokimonsta on stage and she's a Korean woman and so am I. It's really hard to see yourself pursuing a career if you don't see people like you doing it.
Yeah.
So I think seeing her was really important. I feel like once we have more of those people just being put on the spotlight, it's going to inspire others to start pursuing this career too.
Have you talked to anyone? I feel like you may have already inspired somebody else to do that. Have you had any of those experiences yet?
Not that I know of. I think I remember like getting a couple DMs, but maybe like one or two about some people telling me that I've inspired them to start producing or start DJing, and stuff like that is like exactly why I do it.
Yeah,
I think one of my main goals as an artist is to serve as an inspiration to underrepresented communities.
That's beautiful. I think that's like one of the best reasons you could possibly be doing this. And,
Absolutely.
We talked earlier about doing your homework and that sort of thing. I mean, that's where dance music started, was
literally it's Black gay people in Chicago, Detroit
who needed a safe space. Like,
yes, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And so in that way, that is the most traditional thing you could possibly do. That is the most honoring of the roots of dance music. I don't know. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh,
I think we should all be a part of that, especially those people up top. They need to really pay homage to those roots.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's one of my biggest complaints. I say this on the show all the time, is that nobody does their homework, because dance music is so much bigger now. It's it's everywhere. It's on TV. It's on the radio. It's like it's pop to a certain extent. Absolutely. And that's great because there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of money for artists to get, blah, blah, blah. But then it's also bad because, mainstream attention, like pop attention, it's disposable and people aren't doing that homework.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then, it can go sideways if we're not careful.
Right.
So it's awesome that you are thinking about that and that we can have these kind of conversations.
If any like girls are listening to this, I think my one piece of advice is you don't have to prove yourself to anybody. I think when I first started producing and doing music in general, I forced myself to be really transparent about everything I do, about how I produce, what I use, what equipment I use. I would post photos of me doing my thing all the time. And I didn't realize I was doing this, but subconsciously, I think I was doing this for approval for my community, just because it's so... it's such a boys club, So, but then I realized like no men are doing this, no men, like every man I know, like they don't want to like share their presets. Like, no, I'm not going to show you how I made this bass. They're very secretive about it. Right. Me, I'm like, I need to show off everything, how I do things, just so that people actually believe that I made this. But
well, that's like earlier on, you were talking about the bouncer who didn't even believe that, it was you on stage and it wasn't your boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's got to sort of ingrain like this defensiveness where you're like, before anybody can say anything, I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah. But I realized like now I don't have to do any of that.
Right.
And nobody should. So I think that's my best advice to anybody who feels underrepresented.
That's beautiful. I love that. And you're completely right that you don't owe anyone anything. And I will say, I think what I would add on to that is that even if it doesn't feel like it, this is your scene. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the people you see on Instagram all day running around the country making $1 million. Like they're doing whatever, but like it's not theirs, it's yours.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, if that's all right. It's sure. I ask this at the end of every interview I do here. Just looking for a time in your life, a memory, like a single moment, and it could be from any time, like when you were a kid or 5 minutes ago, whenever. Okay. When in a single moment, music really deeply affected you, like really meant something to you in that moment. And that's a super broad question. There's no wrong answer.
I gotta say it was Bonnaroo, my first festival, my first experience to electronic music live. I think I cried when I watched Tokimonsta for the first time, and I was like crying real tears and I was bawling my eyes out. And I've never heard of her before, never even seen her before. I wasn't even a fan yet.
Wow.
But I just cried, and it was super, super powerful to me seeing her up on stage. And I think that was such a meaningful moment to me.
That's beautiful. I mean, there's so many layers to that, right? Because did you say was that your first like big festival as well?
Yeah, it's my first anything.
Oh man, so many layers to that, right? Because it's sensory overload. It's
exactly
seeing the music you've been listening to presented on a big stage in a live context. then combined with seeing somebody who looks like you up on stage doing it, having that light bulb moment. I mean, yeah, that's got to be a mind melting moment.
Yeah, it was definitely very powerful. My mind was melted for sure.
Well, I love that. And I love thinking about the idea that you're probably going to go on to give other people those moments, you know?
I hope so.
That's the beauty of this community. Not to like put any pressure, expectation, but I'm just saying
that is my goal though. That is my goal.
Well, good. Yeah. As it should be, I think. But yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you for doing this. I had a great time talking to you. Yeah,
thank you for having me. It's been so chill. So nice chatting with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're welcome back anytime. Let's do it again sometime.
I'm so down. Yeah, thanks for chatting. Peace.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Bye. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Tsu Nami. Thank you for coming on the show. You're welcome back anytime. For anybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And don't forget, Tsu Nami's new track, Party, is out right now on Bitbird. You got to go grab it. You got to go follow her and keep up to date with everything she's doing. And there is a link in the description of this episode where you can go and do just that. You can follow me as well at Willy Joy or at back-to-back-pod. back-to-back-pod@gmail.com is the email address. And also in that description, you're going to find another link for the Back-to-Back Discord. The best way to come talk to me, the best way to get in contact if you got a question for me, you got a comment, a concern. And if you're a music producer, if you make art of any kind, we would love to have you come share it. If you want some feedback on something you're working on, if you're stuck, this is a great place to do that. So come join the Discord, go follow Tsu Nami, and that is it for this week. Another episode down. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope everyone out there is doing well. As always, I'm thinking about all of you. I'm going to throw out my usual post-show affirmations here because I think it's always important to have these reinforced. Look, whatever you're working on, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever goals, large or small, that you have for yourself this week, I really hope you go out there and get after it. I'm sending you lots of support and positivity. I believe in you. I support everybody out there. I think all of you are powerful, and I think you have the ability to do whatever you are trying to do this week. Don't forget to be safe while you are doing it, to take care of yourself, to take care of others. We're not quite out of this pandemic yet, so if you're doing it with other people, wear those masks, social distancing, outdoors, all of that, it still applies. Get your vaccines if you haven't done it yet. Every vaccine we get is one step closer to all of us partying together again in a real place. I can't wait for that. It might not be that far off, so let's all keep pushing. Until then, I love all of you out there. Take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.